This episode is brought to you by Generate Solutions, your go-to AI experts specializing in empowering commercial real estate companies and environmental consulting firms. As AI is quickly transforming industries and enhancing efficiency, it is important you don't let your business fall behind. At Generate Solutions, we streamline workflows and automate tasks by creating custom AI agents tailored specifically to your business needs. Interested in taking your operations to the next level with AI? Email mfiorante@generatesolutions.com or find us directly on LinkedIn by clicking the link in the bio. On to our episode.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Canena. And today it brings me really great pleasure because I used to bring up this gentleman when I was coaching at a team called the Northwest Chargers, and parents would come up to me and say, what does it mean to get, how do I get my kid in the NHL, John? What has to be done? What has to be done? Well, at that time, I would turn, and even though I didn't know that my guests today, at that time, I knew him through a coach named Tim Mueller. I would say, well, Eddie Olczyk, Chris Chelios, Bates Battaglia, and Blake Sloan, and a guy that I was a backup to, Bob Janicek, are the only ones I know that are in the NHL from Chicago at that time. And that was when this gentleman first arrived on the scene with the Dallas Stars in 1998-99. It brings me great pleasure today to bring in a Stanley Cup champion, an NCAA champion, and that is Blake Sloan. Blake, I really want to thank you for coming on, and what is going on with you, young man?
Oh, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me, John. Got a chance to reconnect with Tim Mueller, one of my old coaches, through you, and I really appreciate it. So had a chance to talk to him for 30, 40 minutes last night to reconnect from our days at the Northwest Chargers. Gosh, I don't even know what year that was, but a long time ago, let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably somewhere in the 80s there for sure. Yeah, in the late 80s or something. Yeah, exactly. Or maybe even earlier than that. Right.
Well, see, it would have been the late 80s at that time. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to, matter of fact, if it wasn't for Tim Mueller today, Coach Mueller here in Illinois, a legendary coach here in Illinois who's helped so many players, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to get you. I have to ask you the question because here's something that I have chased my whole life. I was a goaltender, and I think off camera I told you, I thought for sure I was coming up the steps at the old stadium with Tony Esposito as his backup. I thought for sure it was. I told my dad, one day I'll be coming up those steps at the old stadium. But when I look at your career, and I would really, truly, and I mean this, hope that every parent watches this when this is over. This has been an unbelievable road for you on how you got to the level that you got to. And this is not because you're a good looking guy. This is not because you wore your uniform the right way. This was work. How do you start the passion for this sport and chasing this thing around?
Wow. That's a big, cumbersome question, I think, John. But I think for me, I didn't really, I had a passion to play all sports and activities, right? As a young kid, I loved playing baseball. Played baseball even more in the summer than I did hockey, to be perfectly honest. And I did some karate at the time. Those three things were kind of my passions growing up. Fell in love with all three of them. And I think each year, my dad had a motto, my parents had a motto that, at the end of the hockey season, the skates go away and the baseball glove came out. And I guess as I've become a parent now and witnessed the other side of it, it's interesting to me how the times have changed. And it's no longer that way in so many sports, and I find it really disheartening. And it's frustrating because it was something that I really valued and I loved to do. And I thought those sports complemented each other in so many different ways. It gave me an opportunity to meet different people and, with different interests. And that's always something that was really important to me. Um, I think if you get too locked in with one type of person, one type of focus, one type of sport, sometimes you can get a little tunnel visioned in that. But fortunately, I had that opportunity to do a lot of different things. I did really love to play hockey, no question. Love the intensity of it, the compete of it, um, and the ability to go into environments and try to win hockey games at really, championship level teams. So um, I I think the passion was something that I never said to myself as a young person that, hey, I want to play in the NHL. Um, I think my parents were super grounded in helping me understand that, hey, if you were to ever have a chance to use your athleticism to help earn and pay for your college education, that would be like the pinnacle of all pinnacles. And that was kind of the motivation for me growing up. And not to get a not to get a scholarship or anything like that. I said, geez, that would be really awesome. And as I got through high school and I sort of learned a little bit more, I said, hey, this athleticism that God has given me may even help me get into a better school than I would have if I was just a student, right? Getting in there. Would I have ever been able to get into the University of Michigan as Blake Sloan, high school graduate from Niles West in Illinois? It would have been really hard, John, really hard. Um, so that was something for me that was very, I think, a path that I was on. The path after that is a whole nother different story, but I think your question was more around sort of the desires and the wants of me as a young person. And that was kind of my deal.
Right. It, of course, you are from Morton Grove, Illinois, which was not too far from the suburb I was born in, Norwich, Illinois, which was at
Yeah.
Harlem and Irving, and you were at around probably Harlem and Dempster, I think, in those days, up there in Morton Grove, which was bordered by the bigger suburbs, Skokie, and
Yeah.
that. I have to ask you, what was that first league? Was it something with the Skokie Flyers? What was it? Was it something? Was it just a learn to skate program? You just got thrown in there.
Well, my dad was originally born in Chatham, Ontario. So he kind
Okay.
of grew up as a coach. He coached the old minor hawk team back in the day. So I remember some of his old players actually, talking to me as recently as a few weeks ago, saying that I was probably 4 or 5 out there in a bantam practice, basically trying to stay out of the way of getting run over of those guys as they did drills. Um, so I started, basically my dad got me onto the ice. And it wasn't a learn to skate program. It was basically get on your skates in the basement and walk around. And by the age of probably 3, I was on the ice. My dad had some great relationships with some folks at Franklin Park. Don Cesario was there. He ran the rink, just a great human being, a big mentor of mine. And I've got pictures standing in the net, at 3. There's probably 10 inches above me in the crossbar at the time, and I would go out and skate around. And then I did my first probably 3 or 4 years at Winnetka. They seem to have a bunch of really good coaches. Tommy Gullen over there. John
Yes.
Martin was one of my coaches at the time, and just people that were massively influential in teaching me the game and really helping me just grow more in love with it over time. So I started in Winnetka, and then there was a transition into the Young American program. And after the Young American
Did
program,
you go right into AAA at a certain point in high school?
yeah, I played in my eighth grade, 7th and 8th grade years. I believe I was 2 years with the Young Americans.
Right.
And then I was cut from that team going into my freshman year. And that's how I met Tim. Freshman year in high school, the AAA team that I was playing with,
The Young Americans.
yeah, was not an option for me at that point. And there was sort of this like, oh my goodness, like what am I going to do? And my dad, do you want to play hockey? And I said, absolutely. Like it was a something I wanted to do. And at that time, you know, I don't know how my dad kind of came on to Tim at the time or just talked to him.
Right.
Tim was coaching the midget double A team, which is a bunch of juniors and seniors.
Yep.
I was a freshman and, you know, gave me an opportunity to try out. And thankfully I made that team and, you know, Tim held me accountable to the same standard as the junior and seniors and I had to survive. I was not physically very big. I was not physically very strong. And as a defenseman, that was one of the things my first year of actually learning, you know, how to take space away, you know, in a skating lane and how to use my body with leverage and, you know, have to really learn how to play against bigger and stronger people, which is what I had to do basically my whole career.
Right.
So,
Again, and what, I'll use that as the springboard here
yeah.
because now, like sometimes I would set up games when I was coaching at the Chargers with teams that maybe if I had back in those days, they used to call it a bronze team. I go, we're going to play a silver team tonight. And you'd get a parent that come up to me and say after the game, we just lost 7-1. Well, I go,
Yeah.
okay, we lost 7-1. Don't worry about it. It's a game that didn't count. But I saw them when they went back to their level, like I'm trying to compare to your thing. They were quicker, they were sharper, my bronze team now could play with the bronze teams because
Mhm.
they were playing up. And I'm sure for you to see these guys in this locker room and now you're playing with them, your own team, and then you're playing in a game situation against the same type of person had to be amazing. Um, what I find amazing, of course, you had the travel career here in Illinois, and then, but the amazing part is there's a gentleman that I've admired my whole life that you played for. I think his name is Red Berenson.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, to go to Michigan, the University of Michigan, play with the Wolverines, it's
Mhm.
just incredible. Was Michigan a choice of yours? I mean, okay, I want to go play at Michigan. What goes on after the high school years to get to this next step?
Well, there's a little bit of a gap there, a big developmental gap, John, that you're missing. And so after my freshman year, um, my family made the decision along with me that we were not going to stay in Illinois at that point. Um, as you just alluded to, Bates I think is a couple of years younger than me.
Battaglia,
But
yeah.
yeah, and then Eddie, obviously was quite older.
Yes.
At that time, there was just not a lot of people that were doing anything and coming out of Illinois. And that's no disrespect to the programming. That's no disrespect to Illinois hockey. It is what it was. And my dad asked at that point, he said, is there something that do you want to pursue something in college? And I said, you know what, Dad, I think hockey could be a thing. I think baseball could be a thing. And he said, well, if that is something you'd like to do, I think the only way to do that might be, to look up in like a St. Mike's in Toronto, or like a Cranbrook in Detroit, or look at some prep schools in Boston. So I ended up going out and played at Tabor Academy for a few years with a gentleman, a massive mentor of mine, Ted Kelly, again, and as a sophomore, and spent 2 years at Tabor. Um, and the development I got as a person and playing at that level was hugely powerful for me. And then Ted went and started a junior program the first year that junior Bruins were around.
Yeah, the Junior Bruins. Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And I think on that team, probably one of the most fun years of hockey I've ever had. I think they had 13 guys go play Division One, and then we had maybe four or five guys that wound up in jail for a while. And we, I mean, we had a ragtag bunch, but we
Right.
went around everywhere and won everywhere. Like it was unbelievable. And
This
at
was a
that point,
this is a team. What you're talking about, it could be all different personalities, but now we have to form this team. Yes.
yeah, and it was hockey players. Like,
Oh
let's
yeah.
be clear. So I transitioned, the baseball was definitely something I was doing. I was getting a little bit of recruiting. I went and looked at Providence. I went and looked at UNH. And we went and had a tournament in Toronto, and one of the Michigan coaches saw me play and called me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like for me, Michigan being from the Midwest was very different than UNH at the time. It was still a little far from home, although UNH is wonderful. Vermont had some interest in Providence and wonderful, wonderful places. But when the Midwest kind of called, I was like, man, I'd like to go back and be a little bit closer to home. And Red was really forthcoming with me. He said, "Hey, we saw you, we like you, and um, we'd like to bring you for a visit, but we're not going to do that unless we think that you are going to come, potentially join our team. In other words, give you a scholarship for next year." And I said, "Oh,
Sure.
that's really great, sir. Thank you." And I think within 3 days, he called me back and he said, "Hey, can you come out this weekend?" Well, what happened was they were looking at two other defensemen that committed elsewhere. And then I fell into the pecking order and they brought me out to Michigan. But
Right.
I had so much respect for that first conversation where he wasn't going to drag me along. He wasn't going to say, like, hey, we want to bring you out and then not do anything for you and wait for these other guys.
Sure.
Um, and I ended up going out there. And my first conversation with Red was after they played Western Michigan that night and they got beat 4-1. And he sits me down after the game. I hadn't spoken to him, I hadn't met him at this point. He sits me in his office. I'm 18 years old, and he says, "How did you like that game?" And I said, no. At this point, I'm like, what? How am I supposed to answer this question? And he's
Yeah.
got he's got these eyes that are staring through you, and I'm
You don't
feeling
know
this.
if he's playing possum with you or not.
No, no, but this
Right.
is this is this is Red's way. He's grading and judging how I'm answering this question. I said,
Right.
well, it definitely was not your best game. And he said, which defenseman did you like? And I said, oh, I really like that Pat Meaton. I mean, he can skate and move the puck. And he goes, Blake, he was -3. And I was, oh boy, I'm like, did I just blow this whole thing? and, and so we went back and forth for a couple of minutes about this. And he said, okay. He said, I know you're staying with Mr. Cam tonight. He said, I'll see you in the morning for breakfast and, be safe. And I'm like, okay, sir. Thank you. And
He's like, what else?
but that was Red's way. Very different,
Right.
than, one of the most, stoic, intense individuals I've met in my entire life, but has a heart of gold. That once you kind of play for him for 4 years, he transitions you into this sort of he becomes a dad at that point, and he becomes like, hey, what are you doing for college? Or what are you doing for your schooling? What are you going to do with your degree? He didn't care if you were going to play in the NHL. It was the same conversations with Brendan Morrison, the same conversations with Steve Shields and Wiseman and Oliver and all these guys and Mike
Yes.
Knuble. Like, what are you going to do when you get done playing?
I'm playing. And it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, having that Red Berenson type of attitude and the way you're describing this to me, it was like having that Richard Sloan right next to you, that comfort zone of this kind of a coach, this kind of a man who was looking out for your interests.
Yeah, he was tremendous in so many ways for me. Gave me an opportunity to go to a school that like I said, I would never have had, the opportunity to attend And I think when I went into school, that was, a big motivation for me is I have an opportunity here to uh, get an unbelievable degree, to meet some,
Oh,
outstanding individuals, not only on the hockey path, but then what the school has to offer for me was just a great fit.
and I got to tell you, you won the humanitarian award there in 1996, 97, which I mean, not too shabby, Blake. I mean, that's something that I'm sure you're proud of to this day. Your parents were proud of, and for you to get that award, you were doing something right, my friend, for sure, without a doubt.
It was a huge honor, and I'm still involved with the that's given now at the same ceremony now as the Hobie Baker, which is really cool. So it's elevated kind of its status.
Sure.
But what I was doing at that time was so minuscule as far as visiting kids in hospitals and making team events. And now you've got these applications of kids coming through where they're doing mission trips to Colombia and doing these sort of providing water to a village in Africa
Sure.
and
Sure.
raising fund. I mean, it is unbelievable some of the stuff the student athletes are doing now.
You know, just now, thank you for breaking down the progression of how you did all this, the career and everything. And here's the other thing that, the dedication you had. I mean, I'm looking back since the days of Tabor and the Junior Bruins and Michigan and getting in now to the pro side of your career. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking 50 to 70 games a year. It's a dedication. This is a lot of work. This is your work ethic. This is day in and day out. This is not okay. We're gonna go play red hockey on a Saturday night. There, you guys ready? This is where I really, when I get this edited and out to parents, this is what I want them to know that this is a road. This is a road, and you want this for your child, or that your child has to want it. That individual has to be there 7 days a week, and the mindset has to be there.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing is it's one thing for have the parents want it. Obviously, my parents did tremendous, gave me a path that I could, pursue. There's no doubt. But if the child or the student doesn't understand, like it is, John, a freaking grind. Um, it is beyond, from waking up at 6:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night every stinking day. At least for me, because I wasn't a tremendous student. School didn't come easy for me, right? So I had to work at it. I had to, set aside time to do extra things. I had to go see teachers and get a little bit of extra help. I had to
Sure.
meet with tutors. So and it's what's made me into, kind of the uh, person that I am today. And if the person doesn't understand the dedication that takes, and it is a grind, there's wonderful things that come from that. But everyone sees the greatness, and sort of just forgets about all of the stuff that goes within that. A perfect example is my dad was so funny one time. We did a dad's trip in Calgary when I was playing in Calgary. And the first time now they do a mom's trip, a dad's trip. They do all these things now. It's
Right,
one.
right.
And I think it was a 4 day from Calgary to LA, LA to Phoenix, Phoenix to Dallas, and then back home. And I think it was a 4 day swing. It might have been, anyway, it was 2 or 3 games. It was a deal. So my dad got to Calgary, and we go ahead and they fly with us. They travel on the team bus. They go to the hotel. They go to the place. They go home. I think the one morning we landed in Dallas, we got into the hotel that night after the back-to-back game at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. And then they were doing tuck pointing on the side of the hotel the next
Oh
morning.
God.
And my dad's laying in the bed next to me. He goes, "John, he was asleep. This is great. I'm so tired. I don't know what's going on." And meanwhile, I got to play like, that night. And I'm like, "Dad, earplugs, put them in. Like, we got a sound soother, put that thing on." We called down. They're like, "We can't stop it. It's 8 in the morning, whatever." So those are the things. So he flies home to Calgary, and I fly him home the next day. And a couple days goes by or whatever, and I call him and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "Blake, I feel horrible." And I'm like, "Why? What's up? Are you okay?" And he's like, I understood where you were playing and where these things were going and actually what,
I,
the games of it, but I never understood the travel and the sleep and the planes. Like I thought these charters would be so nice and like the food and yeah, all that stuff is wonderful. But the beating it took on him in 4 days gave him a whole new appreciation, and he wasn't even playing.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So can you imagine? Yeah, thank you for bringing it up that way because I think my dad came to one trip and he was like, "This is not for me." I think he left. We were in Detroit and he left after an hour. I think he goes, "This is crazy. If I want to do this for 3 days." So these are the little things that turn out to be the big things. And can you accomplish all that? And you're a student. You're playing injured half the time. I mean, maybe 75% of the time, you got some kind of injury where people are thinking, "Hey, what's wrong with Sloan today?" My knee is bent the other way, but I'm still skating. Exactly. You
I
make
try.
go ahead.
No, no, I have a great story on that too. As I became really good friends in Columbus when I was playing there with a teacher. I would visit her class and do a bunch of different things and whatnot. And she broke it down for me one day. And obviously, teachers, don't make a lot of money. They work their butts off. My mother was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. I have utmost respect for teachers. And she kind of at one point made the sort of comment to me about like it's not that hard, for what you do. You get paid a lot, sort of thing, and I get to deal with students. No, absolutely, like two different types of hard. But I said, but I want you to think for 1 second too. Like, think about coming into your classroom to teach a class one day and having your principal sit in the back, okay? And then all right, we're going to put all the students' parents in the back. All right. And we're going to have them video you, critique you, write stories about you on how you're teaching and give you feedback. But oh, here's one more thing. I'm going to come in right before and I'm going to smash your knee and have you have massive amounts of pain while you do it. And it was the first time ever she kind of was like, oh, that would be like really hard. And then what happens if they didn't like what I was teaching? And what happens if I like didn't have my best day? And
Wait,
I'm like, yes, so
I,
there's a degree that people don't sort of appreciate. I love that we have freedom of speech but when people are expecting a certain type of performance from certain folks, and thank goodness, when I was in the NHL, I was a fourth line, plug, if you will. I grinded, I played my 8 to 10 minutes. But you think about the Brett Halls and the Mike Modano's and the Jamie Langenbruners and that had expectations to produce day in and day out under scrutiny and pressure. I think of Connor Bedard now in Chicago. The kid is, what is he, 20 now?
yeah,
You
I think
know?
20. He might have just hit 20 because he was 18 or
Yeah.
17 when he came up. Exactly.
I mean, to put some of these younger kids in positions, like that and how they emotionally sort of grow and develop not only personally but
Yeah.
as players is uh a tremendously difficult thing to do.
Again, and I'm guilty of this. When Bedard came up, my son who played hockey through college, I said, Vince, I don't think I'm not into this Bedard guy. And
Uh-huh.
my son goes, well, why? I go, well, he'll never be Stan Mikita. He goes, Stan Mikita, he's only 17 years old. Mikita played 20 years. Give him a chance. But no, you're right. And I think I mentioned to you before we set up this podcast, I hate these guys that are on Sunday or on a Friday night and game 7 is in Dallas tonight and they should win. Madonna's going to score 4 goals. I don't
Yeah.
know what Madonna's going through. So just the craziness of the sport. So,
Yeah.
I I'm glad we went down this route. I know it's kind of chewing up our time, but I love this
No.
perspective that we're taking. But I have to tell you, then of course you go play in the IHL
Mhm.
with the Arrows. And of
Yeah.
course, a professional league. This is professional. I want to tell my audience, it's like our Chicago Wolves who were in the IHL. And then, of course, you're noticed in that 1998 season by Dallas to come up. Um, and play with them. What kind of a moment was that for you? Even though I know you are playing professionally, you've played for one of the greatest hockey colleges in the world and one of the greatest coaches. Now you're playing in the IHL, a professional league, and now you're coming to the show.
Well, let's be really, really frank. I had an opportunity to go and try out in Houston for the Arrows, only because I happened to live with a first and two second rounders in my house. Their agent was always around. They used the same agent except for one of them, so two of them was there. And I came home from class one day, and he happened to be there in my senior year. And he said, "Blake, what are you thinking about doing next year?" And I said, "Well, I'm probably going to go teach," and is what I was thinking at the time. He said, "Well, would you like to play?" And I said, "Play what?" He said, "Play hockey." And this is where my mind was at the time because I had a really successful career. I was a 5'10" defenseman, maybe 5'9". Not as, Quinn Hughes, like no real crazy offensive production. Like that's what they needed if you were going to be a 5'9" defenseman. And he said, I think you can play at the next level. If I get you an opportunity, would you like to play? And I said, "Kurt, I can't pay you. I don't have any money." He said, "Yeah, if I can get you a deal, then we worry about that then." And I said, okay. So August comes and I train during the summer and I kind of get ready. And he calls me and he said, "Hey, I got this opportunity in Houston." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "You got to go down, you got to make the team." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "They've got 6 guys already under contract. They've got 12 defensemen coming in, and you would be the 13th." And I said, "Well, how many do they carry?" And he says, 8. And I'm like, "Kurt, those odds don't seem great for me." And he said, "Well, if you want to try to do this, this is what you got to do." And I went down there and ended up making that team somehow by the grace of God. Played for Dave Tippett down there, who was just tremendous.
Former
Um,
NHLer, right, Dave Tippett? Former
oh
NHLer?
yeah,
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 and a longtime coach in Dallas and Arizona and
yeah. Sure,
Edmonton.
remember him very well.
But he started in Houston, and he was the GM and coach.
Wow.
And yeah, so I play that first year, um, play that second year, come back. I signed a 2-year deal, making the league minimum at the time was $23,000, and having the time of my life, living with one of my best childhood buddies that happened to be working down there in the oil and gas business, just absolutely having a blast. Like, maybe it was going to be my last year playing hockey, maybe not, but I was just loving life and having the most fun ever. The second year comes and we make a road trip to Las Vegas, and we've got one guy who, let's put it this way, was not functional for a hockey game, for right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah, we
And
won't do it. We won't go there.
we won't go there. And we had a couple guys in the penalty box, and Dave Tippett comes to the end of the bench and he says, "Sloan, I got no one I've got 4 forwards left up here. I need you to play forward." And I'm like, "Dave, I haven't played forward since I was like 8 years old." And he's like, "Don't care. Need someone that can do it."
Right.
Moved me up to forward, and he said, "Go do something." And I'm like, okay. So I went out and I played that game. And after the game, he's like, "You never played forward before? Like, you did a really good job." And I'm like, hmm. So I played the next game. Lo and behold, for the rest of that year, he starts moving me up and moving me back and all these
Putting you on the
different things.
wing. He's putting you on the wing. Yeah.
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 Playing defense, playing forward. And we came to an understanding. I said, "Dave," I said, "you got to give me a little bit of a notice. it's really hard to transition back and forth. I said, can you at least do me the favor and say like where I should focus my energies and my thoughts before the game? Because it's real hard to not know.
Back and
And
forth, sure.
we came to that agreement. And so the Kalamazoo K-Wings came to town that weekend, and they're the affiliate of the Stars, and all the joking of like the Dallas Stars brass being in the building in Houston, like all of this stuff. At this time, John, honest to God, it was just a so oblivious to me, so far from anything. And granted, the Dallas Stars at this time, uh, they were first in the league. They were, I want to say their record was like, and this is later in the year, like it's like
Yeah,
54 and
they were loaded that year. That's the year with the Hall and Belfour was in goal. Right, right,
yeah,
right.
54 and 14 or something, you know?
Wow.
And so that was not even like whatever. And Dave comes to me and says, hey, you're going to play forward this weekend. I look and I'm like, we got a couple D hurt. Like, I'm like, this is weird, but didn't think anything of it because I was young and dumb and naive, right? Thank goodness, because, lo and behold, what I didn't know is that Dallas had called Dave and said, we want to see Sloan play forward.
Wow.
And so that he played me that weekend forward. And on Monday morning, I get a call from my agent. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, it's a day off. We just had a great weekend. I have my golf clubs on my shoulder. He goes, well, I'm going out the door, Kurt. I'll call you later. He goes, no, you can't leave. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, Bob Gainey is going to call you in a few minutes. And I'm like, why is Bob Gainey calling me, Kurt? And he said, well, they saw you play this weekend. They'd like you to bring you to Dallas and, for the last 14 games of the regular season to see if you could help them in the playoffs. And I'm like, and do what? Carry their stick bags, Kurt? Like that team is loaded. And he's like, they really think that you can add something and it maybe help the team. So Bob calls me, ends up doing some stuff, asks me a few questions. Very similar personalities to Red Berenson. Hi,
Wow.
Blake, and so I was prepared for that. End up going up there and staying the rest of that year and playing 19 of the 21 playoff games to win the cup. So I was pretty
Incredible.
fortunate.
And can I say something? And I wasn't there and I didn't know. But when I was a kid growing up watching Bob Gainey on the Montreal Canadiens, I still see that number 23, Blake. He was one of the best. I mean, of course, the defensive forward I've ever seen maybe was Gainey, but he was defensive. So he saw something about a Blake Sloan, no doubt in my mind.
I,
For sure.
I don't know.
And with his
But
brass, I don't know. I think so.
well, and you asked the question earlier about like I was very, very fortunate, John, to fall upon some of the things. Granted, I worked really hard for them. I get that. But there's a degree of luck and opportunistic chances that you have to have that are given to you. Um, Fortunately, like this was thrust onto me, and honestly, when people ask me about that cup run, it's really a it's really foggy to me, a lot of
It's a
it,
blur.
because I I really didn't watch anything in the news. I didn't really absorb anything else. The whole focus that I had to have was like surviving to the next day, surviving the next shift, making quality like plays in practice. And every single thing that I did, I don't want to see had to be perfect, but it had to be done with a degree of focus and concern, right?
Exactly. And to
So
go back to what you said, you say fourth liner, 8, 9 minutes a game. If you got 2 minutes on that team, it's
Mhm.
going to be Blake Sloan's best 220 seconds because he's got to now do whatever it takes because you are in this atmosphere of this Stanley Cup run. I mean, again, and then to play
Mhm.
professionally with teams like Calgary, the Blue Jackets. But what's phenomenal, more phenomenal to me, not only because you won a national championship, you were on a Stanley Cup team with some of the greatest players that you mentioned here today, to go then and keep it going and playing in Europe. is
Yeah.
amazing to me. Is amazing because people say, "Oh yeah, he went to Europe, he's done." No, you had a passion. When you went to Europe, did you want to come back to the NHL, or were you satisfied with Europe?
No, there was one small glimpse where, there was a chance to come back. I had gotten married, married a woman. We started a family over there.
And by the
Um,
way, hats off to Monica for letting me have these 45 minutes with you this morning.
yeah,
Great lady. I talked to her the other day.
she's the best. She's
Yeah.
the best. So when I went over there originally, I spent 1 year in Sweden, and then was 8 years, well, 7 years in Germany. And I really enjoyed it. I still had a passion for playing. I moved back to defense at the time. Won a German championship with the Adler Mannheim my first year over there. So I had a great team, great bunch of guys. Jeff Shantz was over there and Colin Forbes.
Blackhawk, Jeff Shantz. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeff
yeah.
Shantz, the ex Sure, sure.
So we had a wonderful group of people that we got to know, and people I don't know appreciate the passion that folks have in Europe for the game. We packed in 12,000 people that stood the entire game. They did chants and slogans and swinging of flags and scarves and all types of different stuff. It was a really great experience, and at that time I was 30. As I'm getting to 35, 36, we have a couple of kids at this point. Um, I was very happy to be in the environment that we were. My wife was happy; she was working, which gave her a purpose and a quality of life that was great. So at that point, it was like I wouldn't say that my hockey playing days I worked just as hard, but my body was slowing down, if you would, John.
Yeah.
And I took most pride in the purpose of kind of helping some of the younger players come through, the younger German defensemen. I had such great mentors, whether going back to the Chargers, to the guys at Tabor, to the Michigan upperclassmen, to when I got to Dallas, the Mike Keens and the Carbonos and the Eddie Belfours and those guys. The way that they taught me how they, behaved as professionals was tremendous. So I wanted to give a little bit of that back. And as long as someone gave me an opportunity to do that, I was really happy to do that. So
Are you still involved in coaching now with this? Now you are coaching. Yeah.
yeah,
Matter of fact, Coach Mueller wanted me to ask you. Yeah.
yeah, I love doing it. I love being a part of development of young people. It's a passion of mine. Um, I coached a lot of my son's teams. I have a couple of camps that I do in the summer. I'm doing a development thing here with kids a couple times a week in the Twin Cities. I run some captains practices when teams reach out and want me to come skate for the high school teams. And I really enjoy it. It's harder than people think. Um, there's a different skill that you need to develop in yourself on how to
Sure.
communicate with the kids, depending on the different age levels too. So it's a huge passion for me, and it's something I'm really excited to do, and it'll be something I think I'll always do. I've been flirting with the idea of actually getting my reffing license, and because I mean, as my kids kind of move through it too, I'm like, and I've seen some of they need help. They need people that can referee games. That I've thought about doing a little bit of that too.
Amazing to hear this, and I'm glad to hear that you still are involved because to give the passion back to something that you've loved your whole life and you still love. Just want to end something about the Europe thing. The
Yeah.
numbers of the games you played in Europe were NHL numbers in the way of the games. I mean, this was a continual thing in Europe for you. It was not like you were out there for the cakewalk. You were
No,
working hard till the end here. Yeah.
I had to look when I was writing a resume when I got done. I ended up playing around 900 or 950 games of pro hockey, which is
950 games of pro hockey. Wow.
yeah. So it was a lot. And if you would have asked me that when I was 12 or 13, I mean, I would have maybe guessed that I wouldn't have maybe even played professional hockey. But then to say that I played until I was 38 and then to I'm going to say successfully transition into the business world, that was a very hard transition. Something that I've explained to my father-in-law, who kind of scoffs at it at times. I love him to death. But I finally got something. I said to him, I said, Jeff, you were a dentist, and Jeff is my father-in-law,
Yes.
for, we're going to call it 40 years. I said, what would happen if someone came in after 15, 16, 17 years and said, Jeff, you have to stop doing your dentist practice, stop doing whatever you're doing. You can't do anything in that business, and you have to start doing something else. And it was the first time he was like, and my father-in-law is a man for many words. And he was like, oh, that would be really scary. And I'm like, yeah, it's really scary, you know?
No.
So
You've done this. Now what's next? Exactly.
yeah.
No, and I have a son-in-law that did the same thing to me because my family's had this travel agency for years. And
Yeah.
it was in 2000 when we had the COVID and I wasn't
Mhm.
doing nothing here for a while, Blake. And he turns to me and goes, you're going to have to learn how to pivot. I go, what's next? I
Yeah.
was done in my head, Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Great. Thank you for saying that. All right, listen. I got 5 questions for you, and then a little jokey question about 5B. But and I have a little perspective on you. But 5 questions, one word answer, one sentence. You have been tremendous with me here today. I could talk to you for 2, 3 hours here, and I know you
Oh,
don't
thank
have
you.
2, 3 hours. But you've mentioned a lot of people here today. But that
Yeah.
first question is, who are some of those mentors that you're still in that car, or you're driving to do something for hockey, or you're with Monica and you say, "Wow, I wonder what so and so's." Who were those early mentors who, besides
Oh,
even mom and dad, and I know your dad has been a big part of your life also.
I mean, there are so many,
Many,
uh,
right?
John. Gosh, the list is so long. I can go back to some of my early elementary school teachers that were
Yep.
just tremendous people to me. My junior high principal, Les Lang. Uh, I can go right through, my sensei, Jeff Cohn, someone who, as a partially, at the time wasn't diagnosed as ADHD, energetic as hell as a young person,
Sure.
helped provide me opportunities to focus and to be disciplined in certain things. I trained with him for almost 10, 12 years. And you go back to the John Martins, the V LaCroix that I got to
Oh
skate
yeah,
with.
another great coach here in Illinois.
Yeah,
Yes.
Don Cesario, the Tommy Gullens,
Yep.
down the path, to Ted Kelly. When I got to Michigan, obviously Mel Pearson and Billy Powers, the assistant coaches in red. And Greg Harden was someone that I got very, very close with. If you haven't read his book, Staying Sane in an Insane World, Greg passed 2 years ago now. And he
What was the name of the author there again on that book?
Greg Harden. He
Great.
was one of the student athlete coaches and mental coaches at Michigan. Touched Tom Brady's in
Sure.
it the whole time, and
I love
Desmond
reading that
Howard.
kind of stuff.
It's
Incredible.
He is one of the most tremendous human beings I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
And then you go to Dave Tippett, and at the collegiate or at the professional ranks. But all of these coaches and mentors, I can't even name the number of players that impacted me as a person. I think the blessing in my life is coming across all of these different people. Um, if I touched them in one iota that they were able to do for me, that's all I can say to that.
Amazing. All right. I've always wondered about this because if I would have had the chance like you, when you came up to the NHL,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're on the ice, and there was that player who was maybe in his 15th or 16th year that you loved, you idolized, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there he is. I'm playing against tonight. Who was that veteran player that when you were a kid and he was coming to the end of his career where you said, wow, I'm going to play against him tonight? Do you remember those first couple veterans or you played against?
Well, we did in one of those 14 games. I can say that I skated on the same rink as Wayne Gretzky.
Wow.
It was the only game in the last part of that regular season. Out of 14 games, I didn't dress for one. I was healthy scratch, and that was against the Rangers.
And
But
he
I was
was there
out.
with them at that time, right? Yeah.
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 And I remember standing at the red line and looking over my shoulder, and he's standing right behind me, and I was just like, can I, should I reach out and touch him? Like, should I, like it was one of those
Wow.
things, you know. And I remember playing against Yager, and
Oh,
how
yes.
tremendously strong he was. Um, so those were two that really stick out for me. And I think the bigger piece for me was when I came to Dallas and I like walked in the back door and I started meeting the team. And Madonna comes up and he's like, hey, I'm Mike. And I'm like, yeah, I know the frick you are. And he's like, hi, I'm Brett. And I'm like, yeah, I know who you are, Brett Hall, and like Eddie comes up. And so I go on that first practice and I come down like on a silly drill and I look up and there's Eddie with this freaking eagle mask that I grew up looking at in Chicago.
Like,
And I almost froze and I'm like, I throw this muffin at his pads and I'm like, oh, is he okay? And I didn't know if I like shoot on him, like, so I was
for
scared,
you.
scared as all I get out to like shoot and hit him in the shoulder or like hit him in a glove in his hand or like I was like like you're so that yeah that was a good one.
Incredible stuff. Incredible. All
Yeah.
right. I'm going to put you on the spot here, and because
Yeah.
we're going to go back to your Chicago roots. It's going to be a quick answer or a long-winded one here, but it's going to be quick, I think. Uh, Clubs or socks? Don't sugarcoat it, or I'm going to drop the gloves with you.
I'm gonna go Cubs, North
All
Side kid.
right, all right, all right, all right. I'm
Yeah.
socks, so I'll let you go on that one. Okay,
All
Cubs.
right.
I wish they would have. I wish the Cubs would have done a little better this year. I thought they were going to. Um,
I did too.
uh, your thoughts on winning the NCAA championship and the Stanley Cup and that humanitarian award? Does it run through your mind all the time?
No. I mean, those things don't define it. My career or me as a person. I think those teams are just so special to me. When
Mhm.
you win things like that, like I won a DEL championship in Germany. I did win a high school championship at Tabor as well. Um, Anytime you win something, I've tried to have conversations with that. Like my daughter won a state championship in golf this year with six players, right? And the special relationships that you have, the shared stories that you have with members of those organizations and teams is something really special to me, and it will always be special to me.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right. Question five. And then I got a little bit of a joke thing because you're going to probably say,
Yeah.
Are you?" But this has been tremendous. I mean, the work ethic that you put into this and everything else, and just looking at this whole career and everything, it's amazing because again, uh, you're a guy here from Illinois. Anybody from Illinois that played hockey would love to have had a career or in hockey, and but the road you took was amazing. If you had to do this all over again, are you doing it?
100% every day of the week.
You're in, right? Blake, you're in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
And
see the passion in you still to
yeah,
this day.
well, and I wasn't by any means the most talented ever. I mean, I still talk with my college teammates and my high school teammates, and there were guys that were so much more gifted at the game than I was. And I was extraordinarily lucky and fortunate to, I've stumbled at the right time at the right situations. And Um, I was blessed in that way. But I also was able to sort of carve a path that many people didn't want to do. I enjoyed blocking shots. Like I found great joy in that. Um, Maybe some people didn't want to do that as much, you know. Um, if they asked me to shut down another person's line, like I took great pride in that and that's what I would say to players when people ask you to do certain things, and you want to do something bigger than, yourself. To me, that's serving those teammates that you have and your coaching staff and doing those things. It wasn't glorious. It wasn't the most popular thing to do, and I wasn't scoring goals. But I would say that those guys that did all of those things learned to appreciate the little thing that I did do, which
Sure.
was huge.
You used the word stumbled. Well, you worked hard in those stumbles. Whatever, you stumble, you stumble.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a chance. I'll leave you. This is just the last part of this, and I want your answer on this. I had a chance to have a dinner, luckily, with Ed Belfort through a family here in Chicago that has a grocery store called
Yeah.
Caputo's. And I was able to go to a dinner, and I sat right next to him, and I teased him that night. I says, I think you guys, when you won the Stanley Cup, you won in 6 games against the Sabres, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I says, Eddie, I go, to this day, I think they're going to play that game over. And he says, well, why? I go, well, I look at it. I go, Hall's foot was in the crease. So yes, Blake Sloan was his foot in the crease. Fantastic.
I'm not sure, but I have a ring that says otherwise, so I don't
I
know.
got, I got my answer. Now that was a tremendous run, but I always when I teased him that day, he goes, "Are you nuts? Come on, Great thing. Listen, Blake, my perspective tonight on you is unbelievable. It motivates me to wish that I was 25 again and trying to do this because you have broken down something and what a career. I mean, just amazing. The work ethic and the time and the dedication, and you're still giving back to the game today. Please don't stop doing what you're doing because this was a really fantastic interview today, and I really appreciate you coming on a conversation with John Cannon.
Well, John, I appreciate you having me, and anytime you want to wrap, let me know.
Oh, for sure. You got it. You got it. This will go out on YouTube and Spotify in the coming days. We have visited with Blake Sloan, former NHL, former collegiate champion, NHL champion, and a champion in life, Blake Sloan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.